Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to another episode of Lifelong Learner. This episode is with Janesh and special guest Erik Allen.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lifelong Learner. So today I am joined with an overseas international guest. We have Erik Allen with us today. Thank you for joining us, Erik.
Oh, thank you so much, man. It's truly an honor to be here, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. So, Erik, I am going to get Erik to introduce himself, but I'm going to try and rattle off a little bit of what I know about Erik, and then I'll get Erik to fill in the blanks. So I'm going to start with the current, and I'll work backwards. So currently, Erik does a really great job at letting the world know about up-and-coming MMA fighters and up-and-coming MMA entrepreneurs in a current noisy world that we currently live in, getting them noticed. And in his past, he's got an interesting journey, which we'll dive into today. And Erik, I'm going to throw it to you to kind of fill in some of those blanks and some of those journey, and we'll dive into bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up in what I thought was a typical household, right? Like I went to Sunday school, played Little League. My parents, all of a sudden, they got divorced when I was 11 years old. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? Like, I didn't know anybody that had gotten a divorce. I didn't know anyone. None of my friends had divorced parents. And so it was just very strange to me. I never saw them fight really that much. I knew that my dad was a little bit of a drinker, but he was never yellow or abusive or anything like that. So it was very strange. And then my mom got together with a guy who was very physically abusive almost immediately. Where I remember like the first couple of times he was at her house, I remember him slapping her around, and then he'd be arguing and I'd be outside looking through the bedroom window and he'd be hitting her with a cordless phone, like just crazy. And the cops would come and my mom would never press charges and he would just keep doing it. And then they did the smart thing and they got pregnant. And I'm like, seriously, and they decided to move us from Washington State up to small town, Montana. It was a small town called Stevensville, Montana, population 1,200 people. And they rented this house on 5 acres, and it was beautiful property, ponds by the Bitterroot River, and lots of just forest land. And then this house they rented had 3 bedrooms. It was one for them, one for my little brother who's just a couple months old, and then one for my sister who's 4 years younger than me. And they said, Erik, you to live in the garage. So I literally had this plastic tarp at the end of my bed that separated my bed from the truck that pulled in. And I did have a fireplace in my half of the garage that kept me semi-warm when it would get to negative degrees in the winter. But that was kind of my escape. But I also felt like he rejected, and hey, we don't want to be around you. Like, you're going out to the garage. And one night they came home arguing when I was 13 years old. It wasn't anything different than any other night, but I'm brushing my teeth. And I remember like so specifically, like feeling like it was God going, dude, you got to turn around and see what's going on. So the way the house was set up was behind me was the kitchen to the pantry to my garage or to my room. And as I look around the corner, I see him on top of my mom in the pantry, just boom, 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 one shot after the other. I'm like, dude, I got to get this guy off. So I snuck up behind him. I grabbed a cast iron pan and I swung as hard as I could. And I split the back of his head open. And he turned around and he said, what? And as he said that, I took another swing and split his forehead open. And I swung so hard the second time, I'd actually fallen over. Still didn't knock him out. He was so drunk. He was standing over me yelling. He's bleeding. My mom jumps up, lands like 6 punches in a row in the face, and blood splats on the wall. Cops show up, take him to jail for the night. My mom doesn't press charges. And then rather than him get kicked out, I got kicked out of my house. I had 3 months left of my freshman year of high school. So I just bounced around from friends' houses for the next 3 months. And then that set me on this path of destruction for the next 10 years of my life.
Yeah. Wow.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. Oh, mate, so many questions, actually. I'm curious to know, after what happened, what was next after the 3 months of finishing up in your freshman year, going into summer? Where did you land, or what happened then?
So I moved back to live with my dad back in Washington, and he rented a house for us, and he would put $20 in the cup for me to buy lunch money for the week. And then he'd put Hunger Man meals in the freezer and cereal milk in the house. And then he'd go stay with his girlfriend. So like I would see my dad in passing a few times a month, but it was basically on my own. Didn't have a supervision, didn't have accountability. And I started smoking pot before school, at lunch, after school. I was taking acid, mushrooms, even to the point where I was like going to buy a bottle of Robitussin DM cough syrup because it had morphine in it and it cost half the cost of a hit of acid, like just really diving into that drugs area, those drugs in high school. And then when I was 18 years old, I got arrested for having a bong. Which is illegal now in the state. But at the time in 1998, when I was a senior in high school, it was not. And so I had to go to jail. I had a black and white chain gang outfit on, bright slippers, and had to go stay the night, just one night in jail. But it was scary enough where I thought I should learn my lesson, but I didn't. I ended up being on probation for a year. And so I didn't smoke pot, but what that did was enhance my drinking. So I started drinking really heavily. And then 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I woke up to a Post-it note on the bathroom mirror that said, "You can't comply with house rules. You have 48 hours to get out." So again, I'm like, all right, crap, I got to figure this out real quick. Yeah. So I lived with some family for a few months. And between the ages of 18 and 21, I moved 21 times, living on couches here, 3 days here, a week there, 2 weeks there, and basically living off of credit cards. So by the time I'm 21, I'm $28,000 in debt and had to file bankruptcy. So then I'm right back to like zero again, right? And had to like be humbled there because I had to let my car get towed away. And I drove this really ghetto car that the window wouldn't even roll down. I think the heat just blasted the whole time, And finally I landed a job in the music business, which was great. It was always my dream. I don't know how to play anything, but I wanted to get involved in the sales and marketing side. And I worked for Universal Records for a year out there in Seattle. But what that did was it opened up free tab for drinking. So 2 years of managing a band and then working for Universal, I probably went to about 175 concerts and never paid for a drink.
Yeah, wow.
And just living this rock star lifestyle without being a rock star, So it was pretty crazy. I got laid off my 1 year anniversary during the Napster days, if people remember that. And that kind of set me down into some more depression. But yeah, that was the crazy kind of next 10 years.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy. And what was the fast forward to where you are now?
Yeah.
Fill in some of that time.
So when I got laid off from Universal, I really was lost. I thought, well, this is just life. I didn't have a goal. I didn't have plans. And I was working at Starbucks at night, and I would get off work and I'd go get a 6-pack of beer and I'd go to my ghetto apartment and, I'd drink myself to sleep every night. I didn't have any friends really. And one night this girl walked into Starbucks and she had come in a couple of times, but doesn't drink coffee. And one night she said, "Hey, we've got this cool college age event. Would you be interested in going?" And I said, "Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm depressed. I have no friends, and she's really good looking. Absolutely. What time do I need to be there?" Right. That's what's going through my head. Awesome. And I go there and I end up knowing all these guys. Like, dude, I haven't seen you in 5 years. I haven't seen you in 7 years. Just this weird thing. I think God was planting a seed in that moment of saying, man, maybe this is where you should be going with your life. And about a month later, it was Easter 2004, managing a band. We went out and played a concert. And I woke up Easter morning, me and my buddies were all passed out in my buddy's basement, and there's probably 15 of us. And I felt God in them. I go, dude, you're going down this path that's going to end your life very quickly if you don't start making some serious changes. And so I decided in that moment to give my life to Christ. Right there in my buddy's basement, I quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes, everything. And I got
How old were you then, Erik?
I was 23.
Yep.
Yeah, 23. 23 or 24. I think it was 23 though.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, and this was in the like halfway, about probably 2-hour drive from Seattle. So I got in my car and I drove home. And as I'm driving, I called that girl up who invited me to that church event, and I got her voicemail. I said, "Hey, happy Easter. Maybe I'll see you at the Starbucks store sometime." And a month later, we're dating, and now we've been married for almost 17 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man.
That is crazy.
We're actually both born at exactly the same minute. Different days, different years, but on our birth certificates, it says 1:41 p.m.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome. Oh, wow. All right, I want to go back to a couple of points. Like just recent, the more recent one is what kind of when you got laid off from Universal, when you said, "Look, I'm back at that point and you lost." Like, what was kind of your thought pattern then, right? Before kind of meeting your now wife, and then having a bit of another rock bottom moment. What was that like? What was kind of going through your head then?
Dude, it was crazy. I really had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I knew, like, when I got in the music business, I got there because I basically lied to get there. I was supposed to be in college, and I went down, and I was supposed to be this intern, and I went down to college. I paid like $300 for an internship class, quote unquote, took my receipt to Universal and said, look, I'm in college, never went to a day of class. And they said, cool, you're in college, you're in. So I got in, and I did that for like 6 months, just showed up every day, just stuffing posters. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work my way up in the chain. I'm going to be this music guy, be in the music industry. And so I was so pumped when after 6 months, they're like, dude, hey, we're going to pay you. You're going to be our mailroom coordinator. You can set up meet and greets. And so I started tracking sales and doing more in-depth stuff and, sitting in on meetings of new musicians coming through town. It was really cool. And so, but I remember this moment before I got laid off. I was at this concert. I was in my early 20s, and there was this girl that was there that is not old at all, but she was in her early 30s at the time. And to me, in my early 20s, I'm thinking, man, she's old, right? But I remember this moment so clear. I go, I don't want to be her age, continuing to go to these concerts 4 or 5 nights a week. I want to have a family. And I don't know why that moment stuck out so clear to me. But then it was like a month or two later, that's when I got laid off. And I still kind of, it hurt. I was like, man, I even though I had that vision or that thought, I thought that was going to be my life. I was going to be able to go into do the music business. And so when I got laid off, I had no idea. I didn't want to go to college. I'm not a handyman. I'm just going to go to work at Starbucks. And this is just going to be the life that I live. And so I just kind of settled for what had been handed to me, because I thought, like, all the shame and all the crap that I did, the drugs and having multiple relationships and all this stuff growing up in my early 20s, like, it was just like, I did that to myself, and this is the life I'm going to live.
And so, so many more questions now in my head there. Yeah. So when, when you said, you settle, right? And then you had like this, like, somewhat, say, divine intervention, right? So to speak, where you met someone that was like, you know what, like, just by chance or coincidence or meant to be, right? It happened, and then you were able to reach out. Why do you think, say, general society, right, as a whole, when they're in those times, in those like down and out times, stay in those down and out times? Either they don't they don't open their eyes to opportunities or doors that are opening. They say doors don't open. That's another question. Like, why do you think they say, oh no, it's different for me, right? Why do you think that?
I think that people get stuck in their cycles, and it really depends on who you surround yourself with. So if you're going to surround yourself with people, they're going to do two things. They're going to, one, either hold you back, or they're going to lift you up and push you into another level. And if you can find the right person, the right group of people that are going to quit holding you back and open those doors of opportunities, and you can grow in that. Like, we're all called for a purpose in this life, whatever you believe in. Like, we've all got this plan in our life to make an impact somewhere. And the people that get stuck in these cycles are those guys that they just feel comfortable. They don't want to get uncomfortable. And really, to make change in your life and to be successful in life and to make an impact, you've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to go hang around guys that are living the life that you want to live, and go and find them. Like, for me, when I moved to Idaho, I didn't know anybody, but I knew that I wanted to connect with people. And so I started like looking up on Facebook, like, what are these networking groups in town? What events can I go to go meet people? And I had no idea who they were. I just showed up and I wanted to go talk with people. And that has built so many awesome relationships. And even podcasting, like the relationships I built through podcasting, I had to get uncomfortable to go invite people. Right. So, if you want to break those cycles, you've got to get uncomfortable. You got to keep fighting and surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up.
Yeah, right. Like, that's why in the uncomfortable zone, that's where the magic happens, right? Yes. That's where you have to stretch yourself. You have to move past your norm and stretch in that, and a little bit, right? Everyone's different. They kind of stretch themselves a lot and kind of just go, I'm going to jump head first or step. And it's interesting. I think today's society, I reckon both here in Australia and over there in the States, is everyone's very just comfortable, right? And there's this very quote unquote entitled mentality, like the job market for sure, where we'll interview people for our business, and they're like, oh, and how much do we get paid? And I'm like, this amount. They're like, oh, I thought it was going to be more. And I'm like, you don't have any experience. And there's like this entitled, like, or comfortable, where you ask someone, oh, look, how's your world doing? How's your job doing? And they go, oh, yeah, it's all right. And then, but you challenge them and go, why didn't you change it? They go, oh, no, you don't understand. It's too hard.
Right.
Why do you think currently people don't like to be uncomfortable?
Oh man, it's people don't want to stretch themselves. Like they get stuck in this way where they, like you said, they kind of feel entitled. They're like, well, I went to college and I deserve this big amount of money, or, my family owns this restaurant, or my family is a city person, like a government person or whatnot. Right. So I'm just entitled to this. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think if you don't work hard for what you want, then you're not going to appreciate the things that you get in life. Mm-hmm. So you've got to really, like, these guys, like, if they go in and they want that big high pay and they don't have experience, they're not going to love that position. They're just there for the money. And I think in life, if we're chasing money all the time, we're never going to be happy. We're never going to be fulfilled. We have to make ourselves happy, and before we can get that. And so I think there's so many people out there that they just need to, if they want to break that cycle, they've got to kind of realize, like, if they want this thing, whatever that is. For me, it's property. I want the property, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe they want to own a plane or own a house or something like that. They've got to put that in their head and work so hard for that on a daily basis, and they will obtain that eventually. But they've got to put in the work. They can't just go, I'm just deserving of that, right?
Mm-hmm. And then it's interesting. The people that say they're deserving of it, I'm not sure about you, but I always hear the complaining, right? You hear they complain, and and you look at some of the successful people and successful athletes, right? Even in the combat sports and the MMA world, that their luck, so to speak, or natural talent wears out eventually, right? Mm-hmm. And they got to put in the work. They got to put in the work, or they're going to end up on their ass, right? They're going to go, I deserve this, or I've come from a good pedigree, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't last. And it's somewhat like it's interesting. It's instantaneous feedback.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Right. You're going to get knocked out, or you're going to get tapped out, because it's instantaneous feedback of, did I put in the work or not?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you look at the greatest athletes in the world, they're the guys that were getting up at 4:00 in the morning and practicing and visualizing. And, the greatest fighters in the world, they're in the ring, they're in the gym, constantly practicing and practicing and practicing. Where you got these guys that they're like, well, I can just show up and, win this fight, or, I can just show up and make the money playing a football game or whatnot, right? And it's like, nah, man, you look at the greats who have done massive things, made an impact in their sport and in their community, in the world. They're the guys that actually would get up early in the morning and practice multiple times throughout the day and things like that. They're putting in that work to make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. I know, just to share a story on that, where we, it seems like a lifetime ago, but I used to compete with full contact karate and kickboxing a while ago. And I was very short. I was short in comparison for my weight division. Everyone's tall, lanky, and reach. And I hadn't competed for a long time, and that was my mantra. I was like, I am going to outwork anyone and everyone, and put in the work, right? Put in as much work as I can outside the gym, outside training, because everyone's doing the training, everyone's going to the gym. But how do you do that outside? And I think the belief that comes with that when you step onto the ring and step onto the mat is just kind of groundbreaking, but then also the skill set you get with that as well, right? But I don't think that is, say, common practice in the outside non-sporting athletic world, right?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think it's the same. Like, I mean, if you're an athlete and you're going to do that, then you've got to, put in that work. And it's the same for, like, if you're not a sports guy, maybe you're an entrepreneur, right? You've got to put in that time to learn that personal development, to learn how to grow in yourself. And, one of the things that, in talking with Ed Milet one time, he told me, look, I use this thing called Canny, and it's on my wall here, and it says constant and never ending improvement. And if we're not living that way, man, we're just going to be like comfortable and just be complacent with where we're at and never want to grow. And for me, I don't want to be average, man. I want to be above average, well above average, right? So I have to do things that are going to put those wins in my column.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's that constant, as you said, that constant growth. There's a quote like if you rest, you rust, right? If
Yes.
something's not moving, it gains rust eventually, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. I don't think a lot of the population think that way, unfortunately.
True.
But if that constant growth and constant learning, and that's what we say on the podcast, is like that. You're a lifelong learner, right? You're always learning. You go, you take that jump and take that leap, but what can you take away from it?
Right.
Erik, what drew you to MMA and kind of now this quote unquote like marketing agency for these MMA fighters? And when you say entrepreneurs, is that like your show promoters and gym owners?
Yeah. So when I say entrepreneurs, I really talk between my two podcasts, I've got the Top Rated MMA show. That's where I talk with these up and coming fighters. And then the Erik Allen show. It's where I talk with entrepreneurs, world changers, and success minded people. And really, they could be business owners. They could be people just making an impact in the world with a nonprofit or whatever. And so that's the two shows there. But, what really drew me to the MMA side of the world was at a very early age, my dad was renting like pay-per-views of Mike Tyson and boxing matches and things like that. So I always watched that as a kid. And then he would rent movies that had no English. It was just straight Chinese, like ninja going on, like ninja fights all over, Bruce Lee fights all over, right? And like I would just be enthralled with watching these. They didn't speak English, but I loved it, right? And then I think I was a ninja for Halloween for like 15 years straight.
That's awesome.
Always just been like this fan of combat sports. And I remember being in first grade, my cousin and I, we'd walk about a mile. I'd never let my kids do this in first grade now, but we'd walk about a mile in first grade down to the VHS rental store and we'd go rent UFC 1 and 2 and 3. We started watching that at a very early age. And so, Top Rated MMA, my company started in 2012 as an apparel company, took off really fast and then it sunk really fast and it wasn't making any money. I put an ad in Craigslist, said who wants to buy this company. Guy calls me, offers a few grand. I decide not to sell it. And then I launched the podcast in 2017 and now humbly considered the number one MMA podcast out here in the Northwest, and had a couple fighters out here from Australia on my show, which is awesome. And so love talking with just fighters from all over the world.
Yeah. Awesome. And do you train yourself at the moment?
I do not. I did like boxing and karate as a kid, but never took it really serious. Both my kids though are in jiu-jitsu classes right now and they love it. And they've only been doing it for about 2 months, but to see the confidence in them grow from the first day to where they're at today, it's huge. And just the discipline that they bring home from that. I love seeing them grow each week.
Yeah. And I think it's, I'm a firm believer of getting kids in a martial art or, like jiu-jitsu is awesome because it's like a chess game. It's not just the discipline. It is, it's teaching the kids or even adults, right, to think outside the box, right, with your body, right? Usually we're in the room or in the classroom, we're taught to think outside the box at times with pen and paper, but it's like with your body, right, and go, how do we kind of get out of this? How old are your kids, Erik?
11 and 8, and
awesome.
They love it, man. And they've never done anything like that. So we weren't really sure like how they would react or if they would like to. The cool thing is my kids are cool, man. And I'm going to brag about my kids. Like, of course they'll do the best and everything. Right. But like they get in there, they have such confidence and they're like, okay, we're going to do this. And then they get submitted quick by the coach or whatnot. And they're like, okay, I learned that, and now both my kids are going in there and they're doing really, really well in class and continuing to grow and learn new moves each week. So it's just so much fun to see them enjoy something that much.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a good segue. So Erik, from your upbringing, right?
Mm-hmm.
From multiple different households to now being a father of 2, right? How has that influenced your perspective of parenting and like what has that instilled in you as a parent now?
Yeah, it opened up the eyes. Like for me, I knew exactly what I didn't want to be like as a parent, seeing all of the missteps that my parents had. And, I didn't want to bring that into my marriage. And my wife, she came from a broken home too. And it was different scenarios, but like we both kind of came from this yucky stuff. And we knew that when we came together and got married, that we didn't want to bring that junk in. Now, we also brought some baggage into the marriage, right? Like stuff that just kind of stuck with us. So I was very defensive, like, because I was always blamed for stuff. So I had to work through that. I had to go to counseling and things like that. But I think my perspective in being a dad was like, I never want my kids to experience the life that I had as a kid. And my goal as a dad is to make sure that I'm protecting them and keeping them safe, but changing the legacy for Allen tribe moving forward. They'll never experience the crap that I had to deal with as a kid. And so my goal is to raise my kids to be confident and strong, and then but loving people. Like my kids, they love to love on people. Like if they see the kid sitting by himself at the lunchroom, they're going to go sit by him. Like if they see someone in uniform, they're going to go up and say, thank you so much. Like it was something that we've always done since they were a kid. But even now at 11 and 8, they go, Dad, there's someone in uniform. There's an Army guy. Let's go say thank you. Like they love to be able to do that. And they just, I'm proud of that they do that. But I think my perspective is just like, you know what? They're never going to experience that junk. We're going to change things moving forward. We're going to break the chains of abuse, addiction, rejection. All of that is gone.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why do you think it is hard to, for some to break that chain?
Yeah, they get comfortable. You know, if we go back to that, like, you know, there are these cycles where people are stuck on food stamps and welfare, and they keep going generation after generation and generation. It's because they never want to get out of that mindset of like, hey, you know what? This is what my parents did. This is what my grandparents did. I'm just going to keep doing this because it's what I'm supposed to do. And I think they get negative talk from people if you try to change that. Oh, you're just too good. You don't want to be this. You don't want to continue this family business, or you don't want to continue to be around us. You know, so they're going to hear that and they let that sink in. But the strong ones that can break those cycles, they hear that and they go, throw it out. Right. I know that I'm called to be there's a bigger purpose for my life, and I can stop and I can get rid of that. And, you know, one thing that I love to say is like our past and other people's opinions does not define our future. We can make that change at any point and start changing lives and making impacts as soon as we decide to.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, as you say, that, that mentality of your current tribe, when if you go to think outside of that, go to pull you down. You go, no, as you said, no, don't do that. You're too good for us. And then it's easy, right? Those are the people that you're around. Those are people that you value their opinions. Sometimes they're really close family members, maybe even your partner. And it's hard to go either to turn that voice off or to move away from them because they're your loved ones and they bring you down. It is hard. I think it's the top 5 people that you surround yourself is like you're a product of them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Good, bad, indifferent or ugly. You're a product of them, and I'm always aware of, like, say, influences that we digest, right? So even with our kids, on what are they watching, what are they doing, or if they are watching something that I'm like, oh, I don't really want you to watch that, I'll give them some context. And hey, look, just letting you know that's this A, B, and C, and then so they have some context on it because because at the moment we've just come out of it. Melbourne's been in like COVID-19 lockdown, so everyone's kind of back into homeschooling for a little bit. So human connection is at its bare minimum, right? So their environment or their tribe is minimal. So it's like, hold on, these are now I can control it a little bit more and go, hey, look, these are some better influences. How about this? How about that? And it's really interesting where people go, oh, but my friends would think I'm just crazy on that. I'm like, well, maybe you need new friends.
Yeah. Oh, true. I'm the same way, you know, like we really we want our kids to have fun, but our kids are creative. They love Legos. They love drawing. They love building things. Right. And we've just kind of since day one said, we don't need TV time all the time. So we have family movies on Fridays and we maybe watch a movie on Saturday morning. Maybe on Sunday, we might watch a Sunday afternoon movie while dad sleeps on the couch. Right. Like, you know, but that's about it. My kids don't have cell phones. They don't have access to YouTube. They don't have access to the internet unless I'm there, you know, and my wife and I, we go, you know, we grew up in the 80s. So we're watching movies that, you know, we grew up on, and then we go to show them to our kids. We're like, whoa, that's definitely not kid appropriate. Right. Like, we got to take that movie off, you know, like, why was that rated that much? You know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, I talked to on a couple of other podcasts that I think play is underrated, right? And play, as adults, and you probably see it when you see some of the athletes that you have in your show train and stuff. And when they're training, it's serious. They're training for a fight, but they're also playing, right?
Yes.
Question, and maybe you do see it. Why do you think adults don't play as much?
I think they get stuck in this like mode of I have to provide for my family, and whatever it takes, I got to do that. And I'm just going to work as hard as I can. The problem is if they do that, they're not connecting with their family, and then they're drawing this separation between them. Right. So, you have to set boundaries. For me, 5:00 at the end of the day, it's time for me to shut down everything. And then it's put my cell phone away and go hang out with family. And, when you talk about play, like my wife and I, we love to play with our kids. In fact, to the point where we took a pool that we had for our kids, that we had it for one summer out in the backyard. It's 10 foot long. It's like 4 feet wide. It's a big pool. And we put it down in our basement during the winter. And we're like, what are we going to do with it? So my wife, being the genius that she is, she bought 6,000 balls off YouTube or off Amazon. And we have a ball pit downstairs in our basement that's, germ-free and snot-free, but it's just us and our kids. And we can go down there, and it's the most funnest time ever as a family, just hanging out in the ball pit.
That is awesome. Oh, mate, I want to send me a photo of that. That is awesome.
Yes,
that is very cool. That is, especially in the winters over there, right? Like I know, been living on the East Coast there. The winters are long. They're long and brutal, and there's only so much snow time that you can actually play in, and especially at times when the days are shorter and it's like it's dark at pitch black at 3:00 in the afternoon, and it's sun up at like 10 a.m. and you're like, where'd the sun go? You go to work, and in the dark you come home and it's dark. Now that ball pit idea is awesome.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And, we try to make it fun inside the basement, right? So we've got like a, basketball hoop thing. We've got a pitching net for my son to practice pitching. And it's not finished basement. So we have this open space down there. So it's just, we've turned it into this fun experience place that we can all go to as a family. We've got huge pillows if we want to watch a movie down there, but the ball pit and the basketball and Nerf gun wars, we do all of that downstairs. It's just kind of this fun area for us to go.
That's awesome. Erik, I want to go back to when, like you've had multiple times you've had a choice, right, in your life, like probably multiple doors, but somewhat just for simplicity, like door A and door B, right? And door A is the easiest door. Door A would have left you where it is, most, as we talked about, most comfortable, right? And door B is a little bit outside the circle, right? It's a little bit of a change, a little bit uncomfortable. Even that step when you went to Universal, right? A little bit outside, a stretch. It was magic on that side when you took that step, right? And then even after to calling up your now wife and going, hey, look, you know what is that function? Actually, I want to come, right? What would in those times, right? Those pivotal times that are somewhat defined, like kind of like where you are. And I think I believe like our life is made up of a series of choices, right? And it's like it's a pattern, and whatever choices we made has got us where we are now. And so what do you think, what would you give to people that are facing choices, right? What would be some of your learnings that you would impart on them, and especially like if they are down and out, and they've somewhat maybe lost a bit of hope. What would you say to them?
I think, one of the big things that I do is I have to visualize the life that I want, right? So if you go with these choices, and I've made a lot of bad choices in my life, a lot, and I dealt with the shame and embarrassment and didn't want to live life. Like I just was like, you know what, I'm going to live this life of normality, and because I'm not deserving of this. And, I messed up here and I did that. And, I came across this quote that Tony Robbins says, and it says, the purpose of pain is to move us into action. It is not to make us suffer. And I think when I heard that, I was like, man, the pain that I went through, the suffering that I went through, the shame, the embarrassment, that stuff that just helped me to build the character that I am today. Ed Milet and Tony both say, life happens for us, not to us. And if we can make that choice to get away from that, man, our life can open up so many doors and give us so many more choices, and I look back and I go, man, I made the right choice here. I made the right choice there, but man, that choice there, that sucked. I shouldn't have done that. But you have to deal with that. And, like I said, I had dealt with that for a long time. I went through counseling. I had to try to figure out, like, why did I become the person that I was in my early marriage years? Like, why do I still deal with this stuff? And I'm 41 now. I didn't share my story publicly till I was 39. And it was such a huge weight off my shoulders when I decided to start sharing this story and hopefully impacting people with it.
Yeah, awesome. When you, I just forgot my question then. When you were talking about the just not the uncomfortability or the, sorry, no, I lost it. I had a question and I was like, no, lost it. Choice, uncomfortability. No, it will come back to me. It will come back to me. When you were, when you're talking about the things happen for us and to us, right? It's I always like the saying of I get to, not I have to, right?
Yes.
And how do you think people can open up or listen to these coincidences, right? So I think earlier on in that podcast, we talked about teachings from the universe, right? And we go, look, whatever you call universe, Christ, Buddha, whatever you believe in, right? Like, and you said this pain comes not for suffering, for action, which is really interesting because I think if there is no pain, there is no change of behavior, which is really interesting. And the pain's going to get stronger and stronger until there is change. And it's like the universe or whoever you believe in is going to keep giving you signs or opportunities, but until you listen. But with that, the pain's going to increase. And like, oh well, if you're not going to make a change, I'm just going to make it harder for you, right? Which is really interesting. And how have you put together some of those pieces? Because so now you are you're heavily involved with the church. Is that correct?
No, I mean, we're not heavily involved, but we go to church and we read the Bible and stuff like that. But I'm not a pastor or anything like that. But I love being able to live a life where I wake up and spend time in prayer and things like that. So very grateful for that, and just being able to raise my kids in that environment, like that's huge for me. And when we first got married, my wife and I went down to Mexico and we built homes for people that didn't have homes. We did that for 2 years straight, and it was just like, go down there on a Friday, we build a home on a Saturday, and then Sunday we hand them the keys. And it's like, we're all standing around going, man, we just gave somebody literally from dirt floor to concrete. Now they've got beds in the door and that locks, and they've got windows in the house. And we do this key ceremony, and all the men, we're all just booger crying because it's so emotional to see, what we did for these folks, but then it hits us more than probably them.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you get people to listen to their pain in a resourceful manner, right? I think it's easy to listen to pain in an unresourceful manner, right? Where we go to alcohol, or go to drugs, or go to abuse, right? Like they're the easy dullers, right, so to speak, or the numbers of that pain in that potentially unresourceful way. How do you suggest or recommend people listen to their pain in a resourceful way to lead to good actions?
One, I think that to get rid of that pain, and you're sitting in there and find those resourceful areas, is you can do it first thing in the morning. One, like if you open your eyes, that's win number one. Right? Like you're alive to do something for that day. Maybe it's just to eat, right? But maybe it's to say hi to somebody or smile to someone. So for me, if I wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning and my eyes open up, there's win number one. I jump out of bed, I make my bed, there's 2 wins in 15 seconds. Man, it's going to be an awesome day. Like mentally, you have to go, I'm so blessed that I get to open my eyes today. Whatever the situation is. Like if you're not making the money that you want, or you're stuck and you feel like you're in this cycle of like, family tragedy or trauma or drama, man, if you open your eyes, you've got a calling on your life for that day to go and make an impact somewhere. And so I think resourceful wise, turn on podcasts, listen to people's stories. How did they get out of that? surround yourself with the right people that are going to be able to lift you up. Again, not holding you back, but people that can really motivate and encourage you to step out of your comfort zone so that you can be successful. You can get away from that pain, and you can listen to people's podcast on video or whatnot, right? And listen to how people were able to get through that and then take action, right? That's a big thing. You can say that all day. Yep. I want to do this. I want to get out of this pain. I want to, break free from this chain or break free from this cycle. But unless you take action, you're going to sit right there the whole time and you'll never move.
Mm-hmm. You touched on one thing, and I want to ask you, what is your morning routine?
Yeah, 4 a.m. 6 days a week.
Yeah, walk me through it. What does it comprise of?
So I get up 4 a.m. Again, open my eyes. Win number one, make the bed. There's 2 wins, and then I go work out for an hour. And I come up to the office and I created a vision wall in my office. So I've got pictures of my family. I've got quotes that I want. I've got my goals on the wall. I've got the property that I want. I've got people that I want to meet. And I audibly speak out loud to every single picture on that. And people think that might be cheesy, but if you're not saying it out loud, your brain's not going to just accept it. You're going to if you're just thinking that, you're going to have outside thoughts coming in. But I physically out loud say what I need to those pictures. I am this person. I will meet you. I look forward to meeting you. I'm fighting for you. I love you. I'm so proud of you. It's my family. I read these quotes, and then I go through these affirmations that I've created for myself, and I read through those. And the whole time I've got worship music playing. And so then when I'm done with all of that, I sit down and just pray. And my prayer time is really just being grateful. Man, thank you for my family, for health, for protection, for keeping us safe, for, allowing us to have this home, allowing us to be debt free, allowing us to be able to provide food. Please give us an opportunity to make an impact on people today. My personal goal is I want to put a smile on someone's face every single day, whether that I'm at the store or if it's virtually. But if I see somebody at the store or a restaurant, they've got a name tag for a reason. It's not just to complain about them. It's just encourage them, man. Hey, thank you so much for that. Thank you, and call them by name. And so that's really my morning routine. And I do that until about 6:30 in the morning. And I make my lunch or my kids' lunch and breakfast, take them to school. Right. And then at 8 o'clock, I start my full-time job. And then 5 o'clock, the day's over.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
And the key thing too on those morning routines is if what I would recommend doing is it really does start the night before. So before you go to bed, write a post-it of what you need to get done in the first thing in the morning. So I write a post-it and here's the things I need to do when I get up to the office. Because if you don't have this post-it or to-do list by the time you get up to the office in the morning, you're going to flip through Instagram and Facebook and you're going to get lost and all that stuff. But if you have that to-do list that you did the night before, you know exactly what you need to do to kind of make sure that you're hitting those priorities.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's about preparing, right? Preparing yourself for success, right? And stacking the odds for success. Otherwise, it's like, say, if you are going to work out in the morning, lay your clothes out the night before, right? Yep. And if you're going to do something like write your to-do list, as you said, right? The night before. Otherwise, you get up in the morning, you said it's easier to flick through Instagram. It's easier to go, alarm goes off. It might be a little cold outside. It's as easy to do those things, right? So it is all about kind of stacking those odds.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. Erik, what's one thing that you want to leave our listeners with? One thing that you can impart. It's like, I call it like your bumper sticker. So if you were to create the Erik Allen bumper sticker, what would you say to our listeners?
Man, my big thing is just love people where they're at. Like, it's not my job to judge anybody for whatever if you're not hurting anybody and you're not hurting yourself, man, just love people where they're at. I don't care who you're voted for, what your sexual preference is, if you wear a mask or not, if you like the vaccination or not. I'm just going to love you where you're at. And I think if the world just loved people where they're at versus judging them or whatever it is, like just love people where they're at, the world would be 10 times a better place, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, Erik, thank you for joining us today and imparting, your knowledge and the conversation on an incredible journey. So, and I think listeners will take a lot away from it. And I think we definitely talked about a lot. And I think there's probably quite a high potential of a part two. I think part two later on for sure.
Anytime, man.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, man. It's such an honor, man. I love the conversation we had. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll put in the show notes on ways to connect with Erik and how you can reach out and you can continue some conversations with Erik as well. But thank you again.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Lifelong Learner. If you liked our episode and what you heard, please leave us a review on the platform that you've been listening on. And to find out more about us, please tune in to lifelonglearnerpodcast.com and you can find out some updates about what's happening and get updates on as episodes drop. Thanks again.